the antithesis of the greatest hits, the B-sides and rarities compilation. For a lot of artists, it is a place to find the hidden gems of the demos, the deep cuts, the live takes they created from songs that maybe didn't land on their main albums. But for most fans, again, it's a treasure trove, and I'm excited to dive in 10 of my favorites on this episode talking about records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent shops in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local but you are in the U.S., you can shop online on our website at ntxvinyl.com, and would love it if you'd subscribe to our channel here on YouTube and follow us across social media on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. At NTX Vinyl is the handle. Let's take a look at some of my favorite albums, honestly. I think the fact that B-sides and rarities add a bit of obscurity to certain artists and albums makes them really desirable a lot of times. And most of the time, since they're not the full-length, more popular releases, they're typically a little more limited, hard to find. They don't get reissued and repressed near as much as some of the main albums that get that treatment from artists. So I'm going to dive into some of my favorites. You know me, you know I'm a child of the 90s, and so a lot of these are rooted in some of those artists that I talk about a long time, but I'm not ashamed to talk about it again. I'm going to start off with a bang, and I'm just going to go straight for it. If I'm going to talk B-sides, compilations, and my favorites, I'm going to start with one of my favorite artists, and that is Pearl Jam. And this is Lost Dogs. It's one of those albums that I'm glad I bought it when it came out. Which I did. I remember I got this from the Tin Club, came out in 2003. It is a double gatefold pressing 3 LP, and it contains tracks from their entire history up until 2003, B-sides from 10 all the way through Riot Act, I guess it would have been. It's a very hard album to find. One would hope they're going to do a reissue set of this like they have recently with Rearview Mirror and with Live on Two Legs, which are other kind of outlier releases for them. But Lost Dogs isn't just a cool album because it's rare on vinyl, right? It's a cool album because it really does contain some amazing tracks. A lot of these songs were cut from the albums or were on B-sides of singles. But there are some tracks on here that don't exist anywhere else. Songs like Fatal, songs like Undone, covers. You have covers like Leaving Here, really great cover. Last Kiss, a big song for them, obviously. And then you have songs going back to the early days like Footsteps and Wash. Those were all really fan favorites back in the day, even though that they weren't on a core album. And so this is truly a great record if you're a fan of Pearl Jam. It contains a lot of tracks written by everyone in the band, and many of them stand the test of time, and I think stand up there with a lot of their album tracks, really. So, and if you're a fan of the band live, you hear that's the cool thing about Pearl Jam too, is they dive deep into their catalog, not only album tracks from the albums, but also the B-side stuff. So you can hear them pull some of these out if you check them out live, which is always really fun to get the chance to do. All right, another one, let's just stay right there and we'll go with Incesticide by Nirvana. This was the inevitable, Bleach, Nevermind, and then they're the biggest band in the world, and you had the record label going, give us something more. We got to put something out. We can't wait around, 2 years for another full length. So they pulled out all of the B-sides and rarities and the live cuts. A lot of cover songs on this. This is an original press on the kind of blue swirl vinyl, which is really cool. But you've got stuff. I can run the track list: Dive, Sliver, Stain, Been a Sun, Molly's Lips, Son of a Gun. You've got a new wave, almost a punk rock version, I would say, of Polly, which is really cool. Songs like Mexican Seafood, Aero Zeppelin, Aneurysm. It's really a great set, similar to Lost Dogs in a lot of ways, where some of my favorite Nirvana songs are on this album. And it's interesting too, with young kids, like my 12-year-old, he doesn't necessarily know the difference between the different albums. What's a compilation versus what's a full length versus the first record versus third or whatever. Point being, like, this is his favorite Nirvana record, and I find that fascinating because to me, I think of it as a compilation, and I know these tracks are pulled from all, different releases, different time periods to some extent, and dumped on here for the label to be able to put something out. So I've got this different perspective. But for him coming in clean, just listening to the music, this is what stands out to him the most. And he likes this more than Bleach and Nevermind and In Utero, which again blows my mind, but it's really cool. And it's a testament to how good the songs were, even the cover songs and the kind of outtakes that that the band was doing during this time. A lot of quality stuff and a really fun listen to. And so check out Incesticide if you're not familiar with that one. All right, next on the list. This is a big one. What did I do with it? It's right here. This is Soundgarden. So I'm just going to roll through all the Seattle bands first. This is Echo of Miles, right? Is it Echo of Miles? Yeah. Scattered tracks across the path. Long, long awaited. So this is one of the few, I don't own a lot of picture discs, but this is a 6 LP set on picture discs. And the story behind this was the band released A-Sides, which they have a compilation called A-Sides, which is essentially a greatest hits, but they called it A-Sides, which is really unique. And it came out back, at least on CD, it came back, I think around right after Down the Upside when the band was kind of splitting up. And there was rumored at that point that they were going to follow it up with B-Sides, which is obviously what we're talking about here, kind of a rarities and outtakes compilation. Well, it never, ever came until this. Thankfully that Kim Thale, I think, headed up a lot of the reissue campaign for a lot of the Soundgarden stuff, including this box set. So very, very thankful for this. There is a ton of tracks on this that you can't get anywhere else. And then there's all of the B-sides mostly from the Bad Motorfinger and Super Unknown days, and a ton of live stuff as well. So it's just a gem. If you're into Soundgarden and you like to go deep, this is a great set to own. It is unfortunately out of print, and it's pretty hard to get your hands on, especially being a 6 LP box set. I wish I would have bought it when it was released, but it was kind of like, man, do I really need all those? Because I have a lot of the singles and already. Do I need them all put into one place? And yes, the answer was yes, I did need it, and that's why I finally owned it. So super excited to get this one. This is, out of all of these I'm going through, this is definitely one of the most recent ones I've picked up. And I've only listened to it 1 or 2 times, so I'm excited to kind of roll through it again. I may leave it out and listen to this again. So there's some great stuff on this. All right, next on the list, we have got Pisces Iscariot by the Pumpkins. One that actually has been reissued recently and is available, which is exciting. This is the one that came out in 1994 on like a translucent gold yellow, which is really pretty. Really similar to Incesticide, honestly, because the label was clamoring for more material. In between, this would have been in between, I don't know if this came out in between Siamese Gish and Siamese Dream, right around that era. But this has, I think, some standout original tracks on this. You've got Frail and Bedazzled, which was a jam. I remember when it came out, and that was really exciting. Pissant, Obscured. You've got the Fleetwood Mac cover of Landslide, Starla, Girl Named Sandoz. It's just a really great track list. I struggled whether or not to put this on here or the Aeroplane Flies High, which is their box set of B-sides and outtakes for the Melancholy era. But I went with the single disc Pisces Iscariot. I think it's just a beautiful record. And for Smashing Pumpkins fans, definitely a highlight of that early period. I think it stands up there with Gish and Siamese Dream and Melancholy. It really is essential to that era of the band. And they pull out a lot of these tracks live, or at least they used to back in the day. So if you don't own Pisces Iscariot and you're a Pumpkins fan, that is definitely one to pick up. Next on the list, let's stay right where we're at and go with Blind Melon Nico. I know I've talked about this record on other lists, I do, but I absolutely love it. This is the record that the band put out after Shannon Hoon's passing. Originally came out, I think, 96. Yeah, 96. It contains some really cool versions of album tracks, like a different version of No Rain. It contains My favorite song of all time, yes, I said that, the song Soup, which didn't end up being on their album Soup, but it exists on Nico, and it is my favorite song. It's also got great tracks like St. Andrew's Hall, Swallowed, Glitch, All That I Need, John Sinclair. You've got a great Steppenwolf cover, The Pusher. Just a really, really beautiful record, and it shows, I think, the potential for what this band would have been with Shannon if he wouldn't have passed. You know, they'd only put out the self-titled record and Soup, and then he was gone, and so there wasn't much left. But this is what remained as far as demos and outtakes. I'm sure there's more, and there's a lot of other demos and outtakes that have surfaced, but nothing that's been officially released and pressed. So it's nice to have one like this, and as a tribute to his daughter Nico. So really cool record from the greatness of the underrated Blind Melon. Let's talk about Wilco. This is another box set. This is Alpha Mike Foxtrot, Rare Tracks 94 to 2014. This is, I would say, most similar. Well, it's kind of like the Soundgarden set and Pearl Jam Lost Dogs to a certain extent because it's multiple discs. This is a 4 LP set, and it's got alternate takes and demos and completely unreleased material from their entire career up until 2014, which is a lot. This is a numbered edition. It's gold stamp number 4,699 out of 7,000. Kind of a hard one to get as well. I did pick this up many years ago, so I didn't have to pay anything crazy for it. But it's a cool set, and if you're into Jeff Tweedy, if you're into his songwriting and into Wilco, really cool stuff. There's a cool remix of Shot in the Arm on here. Just looking through, there's a demo version of Via Chicago, one of my favorite songs. Demo versions of Passenger Side, great track. Handshake Drugs, there's an early version, an alternate version of Hummingbird. So if you're a big Wilco fan, at least go stream it, but try and pick it up on vinyl. It is hard to find, but it's a really cool set. It's a nice 4 LP box set, and one I'm glad that I did pick up a couple years ago. Next on the list, we'll do something not modern for a change. How about the Anthology series by the Beatles? This is, man, I love these sets. I go, whenever I think about the Anthology series, I go right back to the when it first aired. I think I owned it on VHS. I probably still do somewhere. It came on like 8 VHS tapes in this big box or something. And it was a fascinating behind the scenes look, because for me, it was the first time to hear like net new interviews with the band and the producer who were in the room, and getting to, just soak in all of those stories about all of these records that they put out, and then the rarities and stuff. So, if you're not familiar with the Anthology series records, this is a lot of stuff that came out over the years in bootleg form, but they finally got around to organizing it and putting some semblance to it across each of these. I think is a 3 LP, and the artwork, as you can see, is really, really cool. Creates kind of a montage. I haven't listened to these in a while, but man, they are beautiful. I love these records. I love all of the stops and starts of the studio stuff. I love the alternate takes, and that's what makes a great compilation album. That's what makes B-sides so fun, is that they're kind of a work in progress. They're a true demo, if you will. And even for like myself, being in a studio for many years when I was a musician, I love that element of the musician's psyche when he's not, the idea is not quite fully formed, right? And that's what sometimes creates some of the coolest output. And so for me, especially with a band like the Beatles, where you know their catalog so well, it's great to be able to dive deep and hear some of those moments. So really similar to, what they captured on, with Get Back and the Let It Be sessions, right? It's the same type of thing, but across their whole career. So, all right. Let's talk about the Black Crowes. Here is their B-sides and rarities sessions. This is Tall, or the Tall Sessions, or the Lost Crows. It has several names. It initially came out on CD, and then was long awaited on vinyl. They only made 1,000 of them, which is unfortunate because this is a very hard set to get. It's a really cool, it's not like a box, but it's a It's got several pages, 3 different records. I'm trying to get one of the records out so I can show you, and they're all different colors. So this record in particular is orange with kind of green splatter, but they all kind of vary and have a psychedelic feel to them. This has got it's notable I think mostly for me because it encompasses a lot of the original takes from the Amorica album. That is one of my favorite Black Crowes records. And if you know Amorica and are familiar with the story, there is when the brothers Robinson were at each other's throats, shocker, and they were battling actually in the studio. And the band, you know, Chris would be in there laying down stuff and being productive, and then Rich would come in after him and delete what Chris did. And so they were just in this round and round, you know, drug-fueled confusion and battle, right? But a lot of the versions that were created and scrapped and redone, you get to hear a lot of those on this. So there are songs on here like Pain and Eight, Another Roadside Tragedy, which if it ever stopped raining, you can hear semblance of what ended up becoming albums like Amorica and Three Snakes from some of these songs. You've got early versions of Cursed Diamond on here, London P25, some of my favorite tracks, Descending, just really, really good. A Conspiracy, so hard one to find. Definitely worth checking out if you're a Crowes fan. Again, some of the strongest material that they've wrote during that period, I think, is on this, despite it being left off. A lot of times that's just what happens. It doesn't make it. It gets left on the cutting room floor because it doesn't fit the sequence. It doesn't fit the vibe. They just don't have room for it on the CD at that time or whatever. But definitely worth checking out and definitely a gem of my collection for sure. All right, we got a couple more. Next up, Jeff Buckley. Easily the most obscure artist on this list, but that's not saying much because these are very mainstream artists I'm talking with. This is My Sweetheart the Drunk, sketches for My Sweetheart the Drunk. Beautiful record, beautiful musician. Only released one full-length album, which was Grace, and then this one came after he passed away. This is I think a 3 LP set. Some of my favorite songs on this, You and I is a great track. I'm trying to look to see The Sky is a Landfill, of course. Everybody Here Wants You, Nightmares by the Sea. Just a great one. I struggle, honestly, to listen to Jeff Buckley a lot because it was such a sad story and the way he died. You can look it up. It was very unfortunate. And similar to Blind Melon, I think, the potential for so many years, decades of great music that would have came from this man, and it was all cut short because of an accident. It's just really tragic. So this is kind of, they've gone back and released more Buckley stuff because he was very prolific during that short period when he was writing, and so there's a lot more out there, but this is kind of one that brings it all together on 3 LPs, and really miss the guy and wish we would have got more out of him, but I'm glad to have this one in the collection. A fantastic record by, again, a fantastic songwriter for sure. All right, last but not least, how about some Foo Fighters? We did Nirvana. How about some Foo Fighters? This is a fun one. This is an album called Medium Rare. It originally, it was a Record Store Day release. I want to say 2011, I believe. This is actually an unofficial pressing, a bootleg pressing, because I don't have the original. The original one's pretty hard to get. But this is pretty cool because it contains tons of really cool covers. You got Baker Street, you got Band on the Run, you got Darling Nikki, Have a Cigar by Floyd. Just a great set. It's a little, well, it's a compilation. And so this one really does feel like a compilation versus, again, when I think about Incesticide or maybe Pisces Iscariot, like those almost feel like albums to me, even though they are compilations. This one's a true compilation, which I think the band is definitely mindful of naming it medium rare. So not quite rare, but medium rare, you know, because all of these were released as B-sides and outtakes and things like that. So most of them have been available, but it's cool to have them in one place. Down in the Park's a really cool cover on here, Baker Street, like I mentioned. But yeah, so a great set by Foo Fighters, really prolific band who pumps out a lot of material. So it's cool to have them all in one place. But I really enjoy that one again because a lot of the covers are just super unique, and it's the only place to find them all in one set on vinyl. So there you go. There's a list of 10 of my favorite B-sides and Rarities albums. Let me know what I'm missing. There's a ton out there. I didn't even go into a lot of classic rock other than I mentioned in the Beatles, because there's a lot out there from artists who have had long careers. So let me know some ones I'm missing. I'd love to add them to the list and check them out. As always, this has been Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders, and we'll see you again next time.